The South Moluccas had become a new nation on April 1950. The reason was because the United States of Indonesia had not taken any notice to the will of its people. The new leaders were Moluccas and Rizal. Sukarno was not amused and had sent a peace mission to stop them from being an independent nation. This peace mission was not really aimed to make peace. Obviously, it was a warning that if they didn't want to talk, a war could occur between the two nations. After the declaration of independence of the new nation, they were no longer called Ambonese, but South Moluccans. The so-called peace mission of Sukarno was no success. This was due to the fact that the South Moluccans only wanted to talk in the presence of international observers. The South Moluccas constantly received threats from the government of the United States of Indonesia. And finally, in July 1950, the Indonesians decided to proceed and use violence to take over the South Moluccas. The South Moluccas as a new nation lived in peace for a couple of months. A new government, army, and constitution were installed. You could say that it was the beginning of a new way of life. The South Moluccans resisted the Indonesians easily. This due to sufficient weapons and ammunition. The Indonesians waited until August 17, 1950, when the United States of Indonesia were dissolved. And a unitarian Indonesia was a fact. The Indonesians were very angry because the South Moluccans didn't want to join a unitarian Indonesian state, or in Malay, Republik Indonesia. The Moluccans and New Guinea were the only ones holding out. All the other islands such as Sumatra, Bali, or Sulawesi were incorporated into the new unitarian Indonesian state. By incorporated we mean that they were annexed or joined because of military display. When Indonesia tried to invade the South Moluccan Islands, it made them more eager to be an independent nation. The Indonesians received help from a few Dutchmen who were anti-Moluccan. They used very big warships and were using Dutch airplanes to destroy everything. More than 60 battalions in 1950 were sent to destroy the Republic of South Moluccas. This would cost them a lot of ammunition, which was running low for the RMS. At the end of 1950, 90% of the capital of Ambon was destroyed by the Indonesians. Because of these actions, the government of the South Moluccas had to withdraw to the neighboring island of Seram with many army men. Only a couple of hundred of the Moluccans stayed on Ambon to fight Indonesians. There were thousands of casualties among the population of the South Moluccas. 90% fled to the mountains to be safe. Indonesians started to surround the South Moluccas until the islands were completely isolated from the world. But the radio station of Ambon continued to reach others outside the country, such as Australia and the Dutch government and New Guinea. Another thing that should be noted, not only Moluccans that lived on the islands, also Australians, Dutch, and American families lived on the islands. Some demanded to bring this case to the United Nations. The Dutch government wanted to solve this in a peaceful way, but the Indonesians continued to use violence against the Moluccans. The Moluccans felt disappointed because the Dutch did not recognize their state. Many of them were pro-Dutch because they did not felt related to the people of Java or other people. Back then they were called Ambonis. Since 1950 the name was changed to South Moluccan. The South Moluccas fought for over 20 years against the Indonesians, but they ran out of ammunition after 16 years of fighting, unlike Indonesia, that were well equipped. In 1963, the president of the South Moluccas, Mokil, was captured by the Indonesians. He received the death penalty because he didn't want to join a unitarian Indonesian state. And finally 2 years later he was executed by an Indonesian fire squad. After President Mokil was executed, a government in exile started to exist in the Netherlands. As a result, rage against Indonesians started to grow. Many South Moluccans who were stuck on the island of Java due to military service for the Dutch had to go to the Netherlands. They would stay temporarily, but after 6 months they could not go back to their country. Immediately after the execution of President Mokil, Moluccans in exile burned down the Indonesian embassy in the Netherlands. You must understand that between 1950 and 1966, 35,000 South Moluccans had died on the islands. According to the Moluccans, 35,000 people had died since 1950. But the real numbers may be higher since the government of Indonesia remained silent about it. The armed resistance on the island of Ambon would proceed until 1955 or 1958. The Indonesians destroyed 90% of the capital city, which means that they really wanted to incorporate and annex the South Moluccas with extreme violence. The South Moluccas would eventually receive recognition of South Africa and Benin. But their goal is to be recognized by all UN members, so that independence can be restored.
Eerste president van de Republiek der Verenigde Staten van Indonesië.
Segala kewajiban yang ditanggungan kepada saya oleh jabatan Presiden Republik Indonesia Serikat. Presiden Republik Indonesia Serikat.
Maar de Verenigde Staten maakten spoedig plaats voor een eenheidsstaat waar tegen Ambon in opstand kwam. De Republiek der Zuid-Molukken werd uitgeroepen.
After armed resistance for over 20 years, the South Moluccans thought it would be better to be more diplomatic. But the South Molukkan army would maintain itself until the 1980s. South Moluccans continued to fight for independence. There are many political prisoners spread all over the Moluccas and Indonesia. Most prisoners only raised the flag of the Republic of the South Moluccas. Thousands of Moluccans gave their lives for independence and thousands were imprisoned by Indonesia since 1950. As you can see here, the political prisoners are not treated very well. These are Indonesian special forces who come from Jakarta and are ordered by the government of Indonesia to suppress the South Molukkan movement. This video was made to create awareness about the South Moluccas, because human rights abuses are still made by the Indonesians. Tell your friends, families, or anybody to spread this message. Thank you for watching our video. The political prisoners only waved and raised South Molukkan flags, or held demonstrations, and are jailed for 15 years or more. You can help them because your voice is their voice.
This was a video by the Fourth World. Next week there will be a video about the struggle of West Papua. Thank you for watching. My name is James Simmons.